that translated very well to the small screen. Too, with the variety show, with your variety shows. I think I was listening to a fascinating story that you told about Henry Belafonte on the Chevy
Oh,
showroom.
yeah.
And I'm kind of, I would love to hear it from you, because I think it was a very fascinating uh you know just product of the media landscape at the time. And I'm kind of curious about how that played out.
Yeah, Jamie Foxx I was with recently, and he hugged me. He said, "Can I hug you?" Because he'd heard this story, and I said, "Yes, true. How in the world did you hear about it? I don't tell people about it." He said, "When was that?" I said, 1959. And he said, "Well, what you did then," it said, "What you did, if you did it now, it wouldn't be news. But what you did back then in the late 50s, can I hug you again?" So this is Jamie Foxx. But what did happen was on my show, Pat Boone Chevy Show, I was overwhelmed by the guests who would come on my show and sing with me. And color, in my mind, was not an issue at all. So we had Johnny Mathis, we had the Mills Brothers, we had Ella Fitzgerald, Nat King Cole. I sang with all of them, and they were singing with me on my show. And my show was the Pat Boone Chevy Show, sometimes number one in the ratings on Thursday night. And I'm still in college at Columbia University, having a kid a year for 4 years. And so all of this was happening. And now in the third year, I get a call from Harry Belafonte personally. And he said, "I've been watching your show. I like the way you treat your guests." And he says, "Would you like me to come on? We can do some song." I said, "Of course I would." And I had a meeting soon after that. I said, "My people will call your people and we'll set it up." Well, then when I got the meeting with our Chevrolet and the ad agency people and ABC, I said, "Harry Belafonte wants to come on the show." And they said, "Oh, no, we can't do that." Is why? Well, Chevrolet, we hadn't told you this, but Chevrolet's getting a lot of flack in the South because you're having so many black guests on your show. And we can't have Harry Belafonte because he's being so noisy in his civil rights movement. And I said, "You mean I have to say no to Harry Belafonte?" "Well, yeah, because we may lose our sponsor." Well, I was stunned, and I came back to the subject, and I said, "Guys, is it called? It's called the Pat Boone Chevy Show, isn't it?" "Yes." "If it's called the Pat Boone Chevy Show and Pat Boone has to say no to Harry Belafonte, the biggest performer in the world at this point, I'm going to have to ask you to get somebody else to take the show from here. I'm not going to host a show if I cannot have the biggest performer in the world simply because of that. I'm from the South. I know what that's about, but I'm not going to perpetuate it right now." And so they said, "Well, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. You're going to walk off your show for that?" And I said, "Well, it's more than that. It's a bigger issue than that." And they said, "Well, look, if we have him on, can you guarantee there won't be any civil rights statements or we'll lose our sponsor?" I said, "I'm sure if I talk to Harry about this, that just he and I singing together will be enough of a statement. I'm sure he'll agree." Well, I'd like to say it happened, but it didn't because the schedules didn't mesh. And I just quit the show after that. I just wasn't going to continue with a half-hour show. I went on to specials,
Yeah.
specials after that, but I realized in my half-hour shows, I was going to bump into that issue again, and I just didn't want it. So that's why, but I didn't ever publicize or talk about it. Somehow the word got around, and that's how Jamie Foxx wanted to give me a hug, which I welcomed.